going on, everybody? This is Strasburg Steve here, and tonight I've got a very, very interesting, very, very complicated subject at play when discussing religion and sports and how they clash with each other, but how there are also some very interesting parallels. I originally got this idea from Halftime TV's video discussion with Pastor Stephen Blake, and I was very involved in the live comments and stuff like that because I was like, this is such a great idea to talk about this sort of thing. It's a very creative sort of subject. So I just wanted to say thanks guys for coming on and having a discussion about this on my channel. It's a pleasure to have you guys.
Oh, for sure, man.
The pleasure is mine.
Yeah, of course. But before we start, the first thing I want to address right off the bat is recently we have had a former footballer, Jean-Pierre Adams, has recently passed away. He passed away yesterday at the age of 83. So I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with his story, but this was
I am.
So this was a very I look at Jean-Pierre Adams and his legacy almost in comparison to a Jackie Robinson type what we have in the US, because there weren't at this time in France in the 1970s in football, there were not many there was definitely a lack of African players in the game in France at least, and still around the world there's much progress. So Jean-Pierre Adams started out his career at Entente BFN. Then he moved to Nîmes Olympique in 1984, and he started his career there and was the first ever African player to represent the club. And he formed a very good center back partnership with I forget I should have done my research a little more, but he formed this very, very good center back in the 70s. With another Nîmes center back, and had a pretty good career. But what happened to Adams is very tragic, because in 1982, at March 17th, he went to a hospital in Lyon to do a standard procedure on his knee, and the doctors there were actually on strike, so they had backup doctors operating on this man's knee. So what ended up happening was these backup doctors and a trainee gave Jean-Pierre an anesthetic, a nearly fatal dose of anesthetic, and then when they were putting the tubes inside to give his lungs oxygen, because you need that when you're in surgery, instead of ventilating his lungs, they actually caused it deprived his lungs of oxygen, and then he suffered a cardiac arrest, and he was in a coma for the last 39 years of his life until yesterday. So my heart goes out to Jean-Pierre Adams and his family. This is just an incredibly sad story, and I had to mention him, and I had to speak about this because he deserves his story to be told. And it honestly, it just breaks my heart that he went into a hospital thinking, okay, I'm gonna get out of this, it's just a knee operation, I'll get out of it, and then he ends up in a coma for nearly 40 years of his life. I mean, it's very sad. And like I said, I think this guy he is a very underrated name in terms of international football and his impact on the game for African players in the game, because he paved the way, just like a Jackie Robinson in baseball did. So rest in peace, Jean-Pierre Adams. I will never forget him, and I hope that more people learn about his story. And it's very tragic when that happens to someone who has the courage to step up and despite racial tensions and whatnot, which plagues the world nowadays with all this kind of stuff going on. So I definitely just had to mention that out there. Thoughts, you guys, about Jean-Pierre Adams?
Well, today was the first time I heard about him.
Yeah, yeah.
When he died, and then you gave some more details. But it's pretty sad,
Yeah.
to know that it was a strike, and he wasn't. He probably wasn't even aware, because probably had been aware. Probably just wait until the strike finished. We could do him surgery, because I don't think it was a life and death surgery that could have waited a day or two.
Yeah,
or
it
even a week.
was a knee surgery for a tendon. It wasn't any. It required anesthetic, so it was serious enough, but it wasn't taken serious enough. You're right.
I think it's sad, it's tragic and all of that. We've grown so far from where we were then, that a lot of people they don't realize the significance of the role that
Of the
he played.
pioneers, of the people who decided to step up, and
Right.
you know what? Despite the color of my skin, yeah, I might get some abuse, but I want to play, and I'm gonna play. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially in France in the mid 1900s.
70s. Yeah.
Right, you have
And
to understand that it wasn't the time to be playing as an African person in France. I see now the likes of Bukayo Saka, Marcus Rashford, Raheem Sterling. They're facing social media
To this day.
hate, right? So and back then fans weren't chastised for what they did in the stands.
It was the norm. It was the norm. No one called them out.
Right, so I can imagine him going to a football game week in, week out, and the abuse you'd face. So again, it's sad. We've grown so far from the human element now that a lot of people they'll see it and they'll probably hit a sad face emoji, and then that will be the end of it. They forget about it in 5 minutes, or even as soon as they move on to the next thing that's on Instagram or on social media. So I think it's sad, it's tragic, but R.I.P. Jean-Pierre.
For sure.
True pioneer.
Speaking of Bukayo Saka, Rashford and Sancho, do you think that one of the reasons why Raheem Sterling never took a penalty in that final was because he was aware of the backlash that he would have received? I believe so.
That's a possibility. That's definitely a possibility. You can't count it out.
Raheem Sterling is currently one of the most hated footballers in England, and
So
not only in England. So I can see that channel of thought, and as soon as it happened, one of my friends messaged me and said, when it went to penalties, Raheem Sterling basically dismissed himself.
Brother, as the ref blow, me see the man take out him shin pad like he must say, yo, me not take no penalty today, you know. And that they make a man know, you know. And because to me, I think he's one of the better penalty shooters in that England team. I seen kick penalty against Chelsea in a more than one game. I'm roof it in a fight.
He's missed quite a few too. So again, it's a do or die, and I think the stakes, because he'll kick it in the English Premier League, you know, because if you miss one, there's still 37 more games, and if you miss two, there's 36 more games. So you can afford to miss.
Well, it was a final.
Never mind. Never mind the fact that you also have FA Cup games and Champions League games.
Because even if it's the FA Cup, it's the FA Cup, you need to understand that FA Cup again comes next year. You get what I'm saying? The last time England went to a major final was 1967 or 66 back there. So again, him being that person to step up and take the penalty when such high stakes are there, considering he is one of the most hated. Remember, you know, Raheem Sterling went to the World Cup, and when he came back, he bought a house for his mother. And it was an issue, right?
Somehow it was, the media painted that as, he's being.
Yeah, they're like, we just dropped out of the World Cup, and you're here buying a house for your mother.
Get a whole heap of beating still.
So what? So what, man?
That's what I'm saying.
Even when England lost to Iceland, and he was here in Jamaica, the English fans them vex with him who are Jamaican. They must say, just lose how much can say they're Jamaica, you know, but him probably he must just know so he must carry that load on his shoulder and even step up. I mean, for England, I've seen him playing much better even now. You know,
Raheem Sterling has been one of the most consistent English players
for the last 2 to 3 years.
Both in the English league and in international duty. And I saw some statistics. I think was it today or yesterday? I think he only needs like a dozen more goals to become the highest scoring winger in Premier League history. And he's only 26, and you don't even you don't get those.
They don't love him. That's just honest truth.
It started when he moved from Liverpool. When he moved from Liverpool, and they were
probably the Liverpool fans them really make that pressure come on him.
And we have to understand that Liverpool and Manchester United, they are two of the biggest clubs in England, and their fans or their hierarchy has more say than most things that happen. If you realize Jurgen Klopp can get away with a whole lot of things that probably a Mourinho couldn't get away with. The same
like
thing
when last year him lose so much game.
Right, and it's the same thing when Alex Ferguson was around. He could get away with things that a lot of other managers couldn't get around with, and it shows the power of these clubs. So I think when Raheem Sterling decided to move from,
that's where the hate started.
The hate got real, because Jack Grealish moved from Aston Villa to Manchester City for 100 million. We don't hear anything about that. Kyle Walker moved from Tottenham to Manchester City because he wanted to win titles. We don't hear anything about that. But Raheem Sterling moved from Liverpool to Manchester City because he wants to win titles. Liverpool hadn't won the English Premier League since its inception, right? And he said, okay, I want to win titles. What have you? He moved to Manchester City. And it hasn't slowed down since. And the next thing is because Raheem Sterling isn't really a British, if you understand.
He's born in Kingston, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so they don't identify him as a part of
as
their,
an English, as someone.
Yeah, so he
probably Liverpool wanted him to be the next Johnny Barnes for them.
Well, whatever it is that you want, but you have to understand that players have ambitions, and it's the same thing now with Paul Pogba. He's been doing everything at Manchester United. He hasn't come out, he hasn't missed training, he hasn't done any of that. And yet he still gets more stick than Harry Kane, who came out openly in the media and says he wanted to leave because he wants to be competing for titles.
It's inconsistent. The media treatment is inconsistent. And to tie a bow on the whole Jean-Pierre Adams conversation, like you were saying, I mean, the stuff that was probably said to him during these games, I don't even want to know. It must have been just horrific. But you know what? He played through it, and now look at France's World Cup squad nowadays.
You can call that an African team. You can call that an African team.
Yeah, and a lot of them are African based. So I mean, it's
they're not even mixed; they're fully black.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. So and that kind of thing is
so we can counter 3 man from our 4 man in the front starting 11. Why? Yeah. The goalkeeper, Pavard,
Digne, Lucas Digne,
and the striker, the left winger, the right winger, left winger. What's his name? Griezmann.
Yeah, Griezmann. Or he plays the attacking mid. Yep, Griezmann. But yeah, no. So and that kind of thing wouldn't have been possible without a pioneer and an extremely influential footballer for the world. Honestly, he doesn't get the credit he deserves. So, but yeah, definitely rest in peace, Jean-Pierre Adams. And yeah, I couldn't have more sympathy and prayers up to his family, because I mean
it's good that we can remember him in this positive, and it's good to know that somebody,
had the balls.
That legacy left, even though I've never heard of him before. No,
and even though his life was,
or his existence,
for 40 years, for half of his life he was in a coma. So and even despite that, he still has a legacy and an impact on the world. So, but yeah, Recipes Jean-Pierre Adams. So moving on now to the main thing that I wanted to discuss with you guys is about religion and sports and this sort of thing. So I kind of wanted to start off with the discussion about getting to know where you guys stand with religion. Like what's your experience? I know a little bit more about Stevens compared to yours, Normando. So what is your experience with religion? Are you religious yourself, or what was your experience? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Oh, there you go. It's okay.
Yeah.
Continue. Go ahead.
As Pastor Stephen Blake said last week in our discussion, he doesn't like to consider himself religious, but he definitely considers himself spiritual. All right.
A believer in God.
So I am of the same. I am of the same belief. I grew up in church. I was in Sunday school every Sunday. I had to go to church really. Like my mom is a Christian. My dad was a Christian.
Same thing with my parents. I had to go with my parents until I got confirmed. Then I could choose.
So my dad was a part of the choir, but he was a Seventh-day Adventist. So my mom went to church on Sunday. My dad was a Seventh-day Adventist, and then my dad he became Rastafarian. Yeah. So
interesting.
But my mom was still going to the Sunday church, right? The Church of Christ. Blessings, Pastor Michael Gardner. He's still my pastor to date, and if I go to Jamaica tomorrow, I definitely will return, because it was more about actually going to church for me. It was the relationship. That I went to school with the pastor's children as well. We grew up like relatives and that sort of thing. But as I grew older, and the Lord gave you a brain to think, right? So I started exploring. I started going to different churches. I've been to different Adventist churches. I've been to Jehovah's Witness. I've been to almost all the denominations really, because I just get up on a Sunday and I'd be like, okay, let's go here to hear what they have to say now. You get me? And you
could find the differences between like, which one do I kind of like?
Yeah. So you can find it because remember, you're growing up and your choices aren't yours, right? You make choices.
It's whatever your parents bring you to.
Yeah, exactly, because you're a minor, so whatever your parents said, that's what you have to work with.
Yeah.
So my parents brought me to Sunday church. My dad never really took me to church or anything, but he was because whenever I'd ask him, if you're not coming to church, he would say, church is not the building. I can have church right here. You get me? So it goes back to what Pastor said again last week. That's why when he mentioned it, I laughed. Because my dad was always saying church is not the building, church is here, right? And going to Sunday church, the pastor would say it as well, your body is the temple of God, but he would do it from a different perspective, saying you should keep this temple sacred and ensure that you don't put unclean things into it, not as it relates to what you eat as in food or whatever, because they always preach as well once it is clean. And
but what you nourish your mind with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
brilliant.
Right. So I grew up with all this information with my father bringing his level of wisdom, because he grew up in the church and he could quote the Bible cover to cover to me. Wow. But he just decided that he was going to step out of the church for whatever reason, because as I grew older, I started talking to him and I realized his level of thought, but I couldn't put my finger on why he stepped out of the church. You get what I'm saying? Because it got to him the point where his mom passed on, rest in peace, grandma. But his mom passed on, and he took the coffin to the front of the church. And that's it. He took the coffin to the front of the church. He didn't bring it to the altar.
Oh wow, yeah.
So I assume it was something that cut him really deep. Because remember, I'm telling you, this is a young man that grew up in church, sang on the choir, everything, the whole works. You get me? So I did my research when I was in 10th grade. I had a discussion with you know, you go into high school, you'll always have these persons who they go to church every Saturday and they're high in church, and put it that way. So they tried to look down on you because you're the guy who basically doesn't, you don't conform then. So she was saying something, and I started asking some questions, but it wasn't like from a perspective of me being rude or me being blasphemous or any of that.
It was probably a questioning. You wanted to learn.
Yeah, so I was there, and I was, because a lot of times, you know, the people who portray themselves as prophets or they are doing God's work or whatever, the reason so blindsided is almost as if their horse is on the track. So, you know, when you put a horse out with blinders on, they just have so they just have sight on what's happening in front of them. So they can't draw information from other angles to form an opinion.
It's narrow-minded. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, so is this what your church is telling you? Because I said to her, who made God? And then she started saying, he's the beginning and the end. And I'm like, yes, but something has to come from something. So it's impossible for nothing to come from something. Right? It's kind of like the chicken and the egg theory. So if you're sitting here and you're wondering who came first. Was it the chicken or was it the egg? So I just said, who made God? And she said I was blaspheming. So
I shouldn't be that surprised, because some people do respond like that. Yeah.
So and if you can't answer the question, they can be defensive.
Right. So I'm like,
just say no, no.
Right. So I'm saying. So I'm like, how am I blaspheming? Because if you're God, this is exactly what I said to her. I said, if you're God, because they're always of the opinion that I'm atheist, and I'm like, no, because whenever they say things, I can always quote them with Bible verses, because as I said, I grew up in church. I go to Sunday school. I went to Sunday school every Sunday. As I grew older, when I started going over where the adults were, and because I started reading a bit earlier than my peers, the pastor would call on me to read a scripture and that sort of thing. And then based on what I read, then he would discuss whatever. And then depending on where he was in the sermon, he'd call on me and say, okay, Norando, can you read verse 5 and that sort of thing. So that's how my pastor did it, just to ensure that everyone was engaged, as well as the youngsters in the church were kept included in what was happening. Because sometimes kids are at church and we have 150 million things to do. We're not interested in what's happening up there. You get me?
Kids are very simple. They like toys. They like running around in a field. They like playing sports. Or if they're a girl, they like playing with girl toys. They like doing makeup. They like playing mom in the kitchen and whatever. God isn't on their mind.
It's not on their agenda. Yeah, they don't have time for that. And that's what I could appreciate my pastor. That's why I said, even today we're friends, because we can talk about football, we can talk about whatever it was. Because even when I went to high school and I started playing like football in high school, like when he'd come to the games or whatnot, we'd talk like afterwards, because he's a lover of football as well. So
did he play League Cup too?
I was a part of the squad, but I didn't play much. I was a part of the 2010 squad for us.
That means you're most good. That means you win the cup then?
Yeah.
He's a legend, man. God, I didn't know that, man. I'm sure you have different level of respect, man.
yeah, man. I was a part of the squad.
Did you guys win the treble that year?
No, we lost to was it Jamaica? I think we lost to Jamaica College.
Okay.
Yeah, we lost to Jamaica College. Wow. Yeah, we lost to Jamaica College.
I think I remember. You guys did equalize.
Yeah,
extra time.
No, we lost 1-0. We lost 1-0 in Kingston, and then we came back, and I think the game at Jarrett Park drew. So
there was one and got town, man, and the final leg was in Kingston.
No, that was afterwards. Afterwards. Yeah.
Okay.
But in 2010 we played Lennon in Jarrett Park.
And then Lennon said him rob them because they wear the same color jersey. I remember.
And the handball, because that's how we won it. The Anthony Walker and the handball.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, but not to go too far from the topic.
Yeah.
That's all right. I love learning more about you guys, because my experience.
I never knew that he played D-Cup.
Yeah, exactly. So it's cool if we go off topic. It's all right, but continue on.
Yeah. So I asked her, and she started saying I was an atheist and all of that. I'm like,
blasphemy.
yeah. So I said, if you're God, because I didn't say or God, because obviously, because my God likes when you use the brain that he gave me. All right.
Yes.
So I said, if your God is going to have a problem with me utilizing this brain that he supposedly gave me, then we can't be on the same page. Then we can never be on the same page, because I look at it this way. He knows everything before it happens. He knows everything. He's everywhere. He's omnipotent. He's omniscient. All of that the Bible states vividly, right?
The Holy Spirit is present among the
Right. Then if I'm reasoning based on that premise, then why would a God give so many human beings a brain, and he knows that
far? Yeah.
And he knows that they are going to utilize this brain to think how we're thinking now. Exactly. So because in the Bible it says if you question or if you do whatever, you're being blasphemous. I don't know where. I don't know where. Exactly. I don't know where.
As a matter of fact, the Bible says, come and reason. Right?
True.
Ask questions.
Exactly. So
also the other I just wanted to interject real quick with my thought on that. The other thing that one thing about Christianity and Catholicism, something that I don't understand is they will act like you committed a sin, but it's not to me, the 10 Commandments are the 10 most important things that God does not want you to do. Those are the 10. If you follow those 10 rules, you're good. So you would think that God would have something in there saying, oh, don't, if you question me, that's a sin. And that's, he would put that in as a commandment. You know what I mean? So for that woman to say, oh, you're committing blasphemy, it's like, it's not in the 10 Commandments. So there are 10 worse things I could have done. And even that, there are probably 30 or 40 things. Like, it's just, it doesn't, to me, that doesn't make any sense. Because if God is, because I've always been told, God is the most holy, the most high, Jesus Christ. He is the ultimate, he is the definition of justice. And if that is true, then you can't punish someone. That's not justifiable for punishing for someone for asking a question, a critical thinking question. You cannot punish someone for that, for using their brain. For that, there's no justice, and God is the most justifiable being in the universe of all time ever. So it can't. Yeah.
And we have a ton of people in the world who are like that today. They're like that, and that's why I try to stay away from discussions about religion, because I read religion and politics. Because in politics, I know a lot about politics because I read a lot. I pay attention to what's happening, but I don't discuss it, because whenever the thing is, you see, when it becomes subjective, then I try to stay away from it, because
you have to use
different opinions.
You have to use wisdom, because it's like you have levels to the thing, you know. It's not everybody. You can't reason with a basic mind or an uneducated mind about certain things, because they will come out dark at you, and you know, because they feel inadequate and then become boisterous and angry. It's just like when Moses was chosen to deliver the message to the Israelites, and God had to use somebody who could break down the thing, interpret the thing on a level where people can understand, right? Because if people minds are dark, you know, you really go get a dark response. And the Bible does tell us you have to use wisdom in reasoning when it comes to religion and them things, because people will get dark for true. And you're right about politics as well too.
Yeah, you see, because it's not objective. All right, we can, with different instances, we can look at it and we form different opinions. And I did art in school, so it's easy for me to understand this channel of thought, because when you paint something, especially if it's not a portrait or something, if it's an abstract piece, if you paint an abstract piece and you put it on the wall, if 10 persons come here, they'll have 10 different opinions. They say, okay, this is
up to interpretation.
Exactly, and you can't get it wrong, because whenever we do abstract pieces, and the art teacher would say, okay, write your explanation of this piece at the bottom. Once you can explain yourself properly, right? I use this particular color because I wanted to set the tone of whatever and whatever, joy or fear.
I used blue because I was sad, or I painted clouds for
exactly. Yeah. So it's based on the artist's interpretation of his piece. May never be replicated based on the persons who come and look at it, right?
Vincent Van Gogh, he was no one, and I actually little backstory, but since I have Asperger's, and so I had this one phase in my life when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I was obsessed with Vincent Van Gogh. I knew everything.
What's Vincent Van Gogh?
He's an artist.
Very famous artist.
They're like Michelangelo, and he did paint.
Have you ever seen the painting, the Starry Night painting, Stephen? Have you ever seen that painting, the Starry Night?
No.
It doesn't know Van Gogh, so they probably won't. I haven't seen it, but yeah, I've seen it.
Yes.
He'll probably pull it up for you to see it, but
on the screen.
Yeah,
I'll pull it up.
When we speak of Michelangelo, you heard of Michelangelo and the Mona Lisa and all of that stuff, right? Yeah. So he's up there with Michelangelo as one of the best ever done.
But the thing about Van Gogh that was kind of sad, honestly, is that he only got the fame and the recognition after he died. So sometimes it takes time for people to interpret your art and to see the beauty in it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I was just gonna point out.
And in life too, we're not gonna understand everything immediately too, and that some people need to understand and be okay with that.
There it is, Pastor.
This is the paint. Have you ever seen that painting before? Anyone?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen it. As I said, I did.
I know you have. Yeah, I know you have. Yeah.
Yes.
You've seen it before, though.
Yes.
You probably did. I guarantee we have 8 billion people living in the world. I bet that almost every single person has seen that painting. Maybe not everyone can name it, but if you show them it, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've seen that before," because that's how big Van Gogh was. But he didn't become famous or get the deserved recognition for his artwork until after he died. So and that's the other thing about subjectivity and art and philosophy and all this and religion, is that sometimes it's just not your time, or sometimes it'll be appreciated. It was appreciated back then, but not now.
Powerful reasoning, because sometimes you get knowledge, or you get wisdom, or you get even a scripture, and it don't click to you until
later in life.
Because I remember one time in about 2012, there was this, I kept on getting this scripture. The scripture was saying to me that Adam was deceived by the serpent. Mm-hmm. Now I keep on hearing this thing, and I'm saying to myself, what does this mean, man? And it wasn't until, because I'm saying to myself, I read the Bible and I know this story, but I didn't know. That's how this is. Let me show you how me start apply Bible to my physics, to how I live now, rather than read it as a story. Because before, I just read Adam and Eve and all of the Bible stories as a story, not necessarily how to apply it to my life, right? So 2012, I kept on hearing Adam was deceived by the serpent. Adam was deceived by the serpent. And I said, why I keep on hearing Adam was deceived by the serpent? And then there was this guy who I was hanging around at the time. I didn't know that the scripture that was coming to me was telling to be careful, because I was following everything what these guys were saying.
It's a shady friend that you had, or a
new friend that somebody introduced me to. And this guy,
it's not Normando, right?
No.
Right. I'm just joking.
Yeah, and so anything this guy would tell me to do, I would do it, and I keep on hearing Adam was deceived by the serpent until finally everything came to the floor that this guy was pretty deceptive and whatever. And it's like about a month later, I said, oh, it's like God was trying to tell me through the scripture, say, this guy, he will lead you astray if you don't be careful. And that is when I started reading the Bible, not necessarily as a story, but how can I apply this story or this situation or what I'm to my everyday living? I mean, don't get me wrong, anybody can do that, but that's how I read my Bible now and stories, how I learn from other people and what it's trying to tell me now. And that's 2012, I feel like that is when I was starting to take the step in a different level.
You're right.
A different level when it comes to my faith,
But because again, you mentioned 2012. I started questioning things like that, like maybe 9th grade, 14, 15, right? Because I'm looking at it, I'm like, these people are reading the Bible cover to cover, and they're interpreting it word for word, applying it to their life word for word. They're living in a totally different era. Everything. Why not extrapolate the lessons that can be learned from these instances? So instead of you saying, okay, David used a slingshot and destroyed Goliath, who was a giant and came out with a sword and a shield and all of that, and David only went down there with one stone and a sling and killed Goliath, who was how many 100,000 pounds and almost 15 feet tall. You get what I'm saying? Why not use that instance and say, okay, Goliath is the obstacles. I down here as the little man is me going through life, and regardless of the obstacles that are coming in front of me, regardless of how big the challenges are, with the help of God or whatnot.
If David can do it, I should be able to do
right. So
even FIFA, these games say this is a David versus Goliath situation. I mean, even the world is using these situations,
this metaphor,
right. So why can't we see it metaphorically rather than figuratively? Because we go there and we say, okay, David versus Goliath, and you keep reiterating the story. David versus Goliath. You can't get the actual message from it, that it's trying to tell you that you have challenges that will come regardless of who you are in this life. There are challenges that will come
than you are,
that are far bigger than you are.
But that doesn't mean you should just give up.
Exactly. So it doesn't necessarily mean literally you're gonna go outside and there will be a giant there standing the size of the
that's why we all cheer for Chelsea here, because Chelsea no matter how we're good, I don't know why we're never favorites yet.
Exactly. And that's the reason I started cheering for Chelsea. And I told them before, I started cheering for Chelsea year 2000. And during this time, it was Arsenal, it was Manchester United. Most of my friends, they were cheering for those guys. Man. Yeah, I had one friend who cheered for Liverpool, and he is still a Liverpool fan today. But the others were Arsenal or Manchester United. And I started cheering for Chelsea because I'm like, okay, Chelsea, I like blue. And then no one was cheering for Chelsea because they were the underdogs. Like they didn't really win much. We didn't have a lot of superstars. We had maybe one player who could do some things for us. Exactly. So he could do some things for us. You get what I'm saying? So and then the money came and then everything started changing and they're like, oh, you're jumping on Chelsea because they have the money. You get me? And I've been there. Before I could even afford a jersey, my first Chelsea jersey. My cousin, her mom lives in England, and she was friends with Claude Malouda. With Florent Malouda, Florent Malouda.
Whoa, yeah. Well, you're really blessed, man. The man play for Brussels and then win. The man get a whoa.
I think I have it here too. I have it here, and I tell them all the time. I had this jersey. See, like Malouda wore this jersey. Malouda wore this jersey. This jersey here. See.
Yeah, because nobody's not gonna buy a Malouda jersey, so you must have gotten it specifically from him. Wow. Nobody's gonna buy a Malouda jersey.
That's nice.
So nice. I wear it very, very often. My friends, they're
Of
like,
course.
oh, you have so many jerseys, why you keep wearing them? I'm like, yeah, because this one came
So this is
specifically.
exactly.
Yeah, because when I got it, like he sent football shoes as well, and my cousins they were playing football, they were playing schoolboy football, but my feet were a little bit too big. And Maluda, I think, was an 8 or a 9, and I was already a 10. So it couldn't fit me, but it could fit the others. And they got the shoes. I'm like, okay, I'll take the jersey. And
Of course.
I'm just fitting in it now. And I'm like, I've been cheering for Chelsea far before I could afford a jersey. Like I couldn't look at buying a Chelsea
jersey. The first time I get a jersey was my wife buy it for my birthday.
Your wife, you hear that?
Yeah, and that was before we would get married. She bought it for me in 2010, right? She bought it for me in 2010, and we called there. Oh, that was my friend who came on. You probably probably got it. Yeah. But my wife bought it for me in 2010. It was Blake on the back. You know, it was like 100 odd pounds for
awesome.
that jersey.
That's awesome, man. Nice. No, yeah, no.
We use these Bible stories to figuratively. Every time we come out, we're taking it in literal terms, and people major and minors when it comes to the Bible. So they place so much emphasis on, even for example,
on the laws, on just the laws,
right?
The Ten Commandments,
right,
the
and we can even talk about even the Sabbath, because the Sabbath keepers, they place so much emphasis on the Sabbath that the other things that are happening, like their life is literally in disarray, right?
Yes.
It's in shambles, but because they're keeping the Sabbath.
Alcoholism, it could be marriage problems.
I know folks who go to Adventist church and they go there specifically for girls, because the girls in the Adventist, like they I don't want to talk down anyone and are saying anything.
Then put themselves together.
Right, and guys just go to Adventist church. I have a cousin who literally got baptized in the Adventist church, so he could get Adventist girls. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, like,
and he's probably the most religious man when you're done reasoning with him too.
Yeah.
Right, and I've been to Adventist church before, where I've been to Adventist churches where I've gone there early, I've sat in seats, and people told me that I can't sit there. People told me that I can't sit there because there are families that are that's their seat, so that they pay what their tithes entitle them to that seat. So I'm like,
that would and you can't tell me that God would just be like, I'm by me. Yeah.
So again, how do you convince me then, as a supposed atheist, to come to your church? Right?
When there's so many things that
you're majoring in minors. You're majoring in minors, and that's why I try to stick to sports. I talk about sports and everything as it relates to sports, because again,
funny enough, sports is really something that I remember. Like, me and my father couldn't get along when it comes to anything religious. Few years ago, just couldn't get along. But anytime it comes to sports, me and my best friend. Right, and there is beauty in it, boy. There is beauty in that thing named sports. Like it makes for example, a conversation like this about religion and sports. I would have never thought about it. It's very inspiring and very inspirational. It's an excellent idea, and see, it goes to show you how, in life you must run with the ideas, because this is Steve all the way in Chicago, inspired by it, and I'm sure that others will look into it and say interesting. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they don't major on it. You know what I'm saying? They don't major on it. Like, as I said, the most you will see is David Luiz and the Brazilian, them right before them go up on the game, them make the sign of the cross, and with them score, you see Thiago's or the Muslim them go like this,
or like Mo Salah will do,
right, or Pogba go so, right. But apart from that, you're really right. It's not major, even though it's not mentioned as major, but it's a very crucial part of sports too. Because I pray for win when me I play. You know.
Right. And then you're still going to look at it and you're going to say, okay, I have equal talent as this person. This person pray to win as well. So why that person?
So it cancels out essentially.
Right. So again, because if both of you guys are praying to win, if both of you guys are praying to win and praying to the same God, then when one of you wins and one loses, then you get me? So but
someone's gonna feel gypped. Someone's gonna feel gypped out of a deal. Yeah.
So they're gonna come and they're gonna say, God, I did everything that they asked me to do. And there was someone in the Bible who had that same instance too. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But they said, God, I did everything you asked me to do. And I brought it before. I think it was a sacrifice or something. And they did everything and they took the sacrifice. And it probably was Joseph, you know. I don't remember. But
no, you're right, you know. Let me tell you. Joseph.
Real quick, didn't God ask Abraham to sacrifice his son?
Test him.
Was it Abraham or was it someone else?
He asked Abraham because he was testing Abraham's loyalty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And when he realized that Abraham loyal, he just say, hey, or as a matter of fact, he probably wanted to show Abraham how loyal he was, because he must have been known that Abraham was loyal. But I think Joseph was in jail and he must have me do everything. You know what I'm saying? Me do everything, and it's like, you forget me.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like God has said, you're not ready yet for me, I carry you go. You know what I'm saying? If you have this attitude now, I'm a boss, you know, you go cause problem and him wait until him ready. Because probably Joseph with because as a human being, your family sell you out, yo. And if you get back a chance, you discipline them boy, they will sell you out. So he probably wasn't ready for because how do you think about it? How do you decide to have revenge on his brothers, you know? Remember, that is the lineage that Jesus come through, you know, when I murdered them, the lineage, you know. He would have killed an entire lineage and a whole generation, and God would have to start over again. So really and truly, in life, we need to wait until the right time to get things. If we don't get it yet, it's just probably not the time.
Patience is a virtue.
But what if
young people don't have patience now?
And what if it doesn't happen any at all? What if it doesn't happen at all? What if it doesn't happen any at all? Because I know, you know, for example, the likes of Thiago Silva then, he probably was asking God, what else do I need to do?
To win the Champions League.
To win the Champions League with PSG. And then he moved to Chelsea and he won it first year. Chelsea
I'm sure. I am sure he would never dream with how him start.
Right.
He would have won the Champions League.
Exactly. So again, even that praying before matches and all of that, you're praying, the guys over there are praying too. So again, it's kind of tricky and it ticklish.
The best one go for Winston.
Yeah, because they're gonna say it's faith and who has a stronger faith and all of that. Because at the end of the day, you know, when people can't explain it, you know, they'll tell you that, okay, you're lacking faith. They'll tell you.
Well, clearly you weren't, because you were praying to God on the field. You were taking the effort.
They're going to tell you that, okay, you were lacking faith, and this guy over here had more faith than you. I think that's an easy
answer to cop out. Really and truly, because
I agree.
Bible tells us faith without works is dead. So you can't have faith and not put in the work.
The thing with Christians, with Christians, and I'll see this as a blanket, because I'm not even saying with this particular Christian and that particular Christian. The thing with Christians is they value the Bible so much that other readings become unnecessary. Really, it's not a matter of the Bible is the guide, and whatever the Bible says, we're going to use this intrinsically in our life to guide us, and then we're going to read elsewhere to formulate other opinions, to change our outlook on other things. They don't consider that, you know. They don't want to hear anything else but the Bible. So it is the Bible, so it's my way or the highway. So it's either the Bible or nothing else. You get me? Yeah. Bible and only the Bible. And it can't work, because even the guys who wrote the Bible, remember, the Bible is is a compilation of different ideas from different people.
And different authors.
And if you
different
read
authors and different lives that they
right, there's what, 66 books in the Old Testament?
Yeah.
66 books in the Old Testament? 27?
27 in the New. One is 27 and one is 36. So
okay,
36
so
in the Old Testament and 27 in the New Testament.
So how many books are in the Bible in total?
66. Yes.
66, right. So the 66 books of the Bible in total, right? And it wasn't one guy sitting in a room and writing all these books, you know. It wasn't one guy sitting in a room and if it were one guy sitting in the room and writing all these books, then it would be bland. It would be basically black and white. It wouldn't have anything.
And it could have also discredited too.
Exactly.
Yeah. It could, because if you have men of thousands of years and it's gradually showing a progress into one direction, it has to be inspired by a common energy or a common force.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. That's even though we are using the Bible as our guide, right? But we still need to use external, because remember, there isn't a continuation of the Bible, you know. So it's not where, okay, we're going to get another book and add it on.
Or we're going to update it. There's not like a chapter 2. It's the Bible is how it is. We'll translate it to different languages.
But it's the same message. Yeah. It's the same message embedded in there. So we need to ensure that we're not only reading the Bible then. You need to widen your knowledge and your channel of thought, because in the age of the internet, in the age of so many other pieces of literature are out there to improve on what the Bible has and to expand your knowledge of what is in the Bible, because the story of giants, for example, and I'll continue alluding to the David and Goliath story.
Yeah.
If you do additional reading, you'll realize that there were actual giants on earth. You get me? And it will tell you,
and so on.
It will give you details of these giants, right? And then you'll be like, oh, so again, you'll have a better understanding of it, because remember, it mentioned Goliath in the Bible and it cuts off there. So there isn't anything more, any explanation of where the giants came from or who they were or all of that. Just
maybe they were talking about dinosaurs for all we know. Yeah.
Exactly.
You never know.
So always try to expand your knowledge. If you're a religious person, you will want to expand your knowledge, and reading expands your knowledge. And my lecturer in University of the West Indies, Stefan Campbell. Stephen, you're friends with Stefan, you know Stefan.
Yes.
And he says a man who doesn't read isn't at any advantage than a man who can't read. And it's the same thing. If you are only reading the Bible, you're locked in on the Bible, then nothing more. You're not.
You're eventually going to read through the whole thing, and then you're just going to start at the same, and you're just going to be reading.
Right. So you're on the same level, the same explanation that the Bible gives, which is very vague for the most part and flat. You're going to be on that level throughout the entirety of your life, and it has been the case with my grandparents and my parents and before that and all of that, because
they've had their beliefs from day one.
Exactly, and
isn't a bad thing sometimes.
They're taught not to question it. So again, they just read it, and whatever the Bible says, it's law. It ends there. So no other reading, and even with YouTube now, there's so many things on YouTube that you can watch if you don't like reading, and if you feel as if you need to question it, then you can fact check it. So the only thing you need to read really is when you're fact checking. So if you don't like reading, you watch the videos on YouTube. After you watch the videos, then if you feel as if, okay, this explanation sounds a little bit shaky or whatever, or if you're not confident in the explanation that's given, then you fact check it. And again, the source is important, because people, they don't place a value on sources these days. They just look at it and say, okay, this information is out.
I believe it. So, CNN wrote it, so it must be true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but they can lie straight to your face, and you'd never know until you read more research.
True.
But you say some things that are really resonating with the soul, because
me too.
The truth is that how are you gonna really know about yourself and know about what you can you know, if you don't look at other characters, other people, where you gonna learn? Like, for example, there are some characters in the world that are of questionable character. Pablo Escobar, Napoleon, Bonaparte,
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein, Adolf Hitler. All of these guys, I don't know how tall was Adolf Hitler, but no say a couple of the guys that when we talk was they were very short.
Yeah.
Right? And
so short people are the problem.
No, me not say them are a problem, but a lot of them have
That's the problem. Maybe that's why we should take his words literally. We're doing what the Catholics do with the Bible. We're interpreting it as something.
A lot of them have an ego issue. You know, I don't know if it's to make up for them height or whatever.
Right.
But let's say, for example, you read the Bible and you're trying to see the flaws of the bad people in the Bible. You can also look at the flaws of the bad people in different stories, different character, and see certain traits that were in you that, you know, if you don't fix it. Like, for example, you have some people, them stubborn, them don't want to listen, and it costs them.
Yeah.
So, you know, them always say, try to learn from other people's mistakes. You can't just limit yourself. You know what I'm saying? The Bible is the foundation, and the Bible is the key, right? And the Bible, and as I said, there are different levels to the thing. So you can read it today with one level of information or one level of education, and read it tomorrow with a different mindset and a different education, and you say, wow, this is actually deep, rather than, you know, taking things for a surface. So the surface thing is Adam and Eve were deceived by the serpent. Read it as a story. Yeah. That's surface.
Yeah.
Next level stuff is Adam and deceived. You know, say, I wonder if maybe get deceived in my life. You know, wonder if I need to be careful. You know, so you have different levels to each thing. It's like life is simple, but you have different levels.
Yeah. It's a great way of looking at life. Absolutely.
Right? You can play football at one level. Like, for example, playing football with
when you're a different level than playing
D-Cup.
Yeah.
Levels to the thing, you know what I'm saying?
True.
And the better you are at football or any sport or any profession,
anything in life,
the level goes up, you make more money, but then that means you have more responsibility. That's another thing about life too. The longer you live, until probably about retirement, you have more and more responsibility. And even when you're retired, you aren't exempt from responsibilities. You have grandkids. You have to sort yourself out financially, and you have to figure out a lot of medical things come up when you're older. So there are still responsibilities that you have, and that's the other thing too. That's
I guess maybe that's why a lot of people shy away also from going to the top. You know what I'm saying? Because probably some people just prefer for just live an ordinary life and them sabotage even themselves, you know? Because I know people who sabotage themselves just because they
don't care.
They can't. Not they can't care. It's just they don't think they can manage the responsibility of being at a level where people respect you. So them just keep themselves at a level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
But getting back to the sports situation though,
yes,
the difference I think, and it's not just me saying this because I am not going to church every Sunday again as I used to, but I just think, and we mentioned it last week. We mentioned it last week, but we didn't discuss it as much. I think sports, it's an avenue without an ultimatum, and a lot of people, they find solace in that, because when you have a rough week, you've had so many challenges and trials throughout the week. At the end of the week, you just want to let loose and be free. You don't want someone to be pressuring you again and threatening you. Okay, you're going to go to hell if you don't do this. You're going to go to hell.
You need to obey me. You need to obey me, the priest.
Right.
You can't do this. You're bad for that. Yeah.
True. And I think you feel so much pressure from what's happening in your life throughout the week.
Yeah.
In general, like you have a horrible supervisor. You have deadlines you need to meet at work. Everything
Your
is going bad
coworkers
at work.
causing drama.
You have kids who are annoying you as soon as you get home. You can't even get any sleep.
Or
And
they
then,
got in trouble in school, and now you have to go to a parent-teacher conference on your day off.
right, and then you go to church on a Sunday, and then you're still being threatened. You're gonna go to hell.
And then
You're gonna go to hell. Right. So again, people they want an avenue where they can go, they can let loose, they can express themselves and be emotional without being, they can be vulnerable without being judged, as well as they can basically be themselves without facing a punishment. And I think the fear factor that most Christians use, oh, you're gonna go to hell. People aren't afraid anymore of going to hell. As a matter of fact, there are some people who want to go to hell.
Yeah, it's goofy as it sounds. Some people just don't take it serious. It sounds silly, but yeah, you're 100% on the ball, man.
You can attest to this, because even in Jamaica now, there are a lot of the kids coming out and saying they want to go to hell. So it's
and the dancehall artists, them, and it's
exactly
messed up world.
Exactly.
Work needs to be done. Every time I talk to you, you make me realize how much work needs to be done in this area. How much responsibility.
There's probably a Bible verse out there where it's like, well, you know, there's a friend out there and he's going to tell you some pretty damn horrible things, but you know what? He's right. And you need him there in life. And that's what Halftime TV, that's what Normando is here for, man. So
I like listening to him, you know, because when him talk on a level of, like, you have a meds, what he must say, you know what I'm saying? He talk some real serious stuff.
Yes.
And I've said it before, you know, and I've said it at the top of the show. I said, if you're at the front of the line, it's difficult for you to see what's happening at the back, right? And this is me, so I'm in the middle of the line now, because as I said, I go to church. If there was a church near to me, and a pastor, he even messaged me on a number of occasions saying, okay, there's this church close, but again, my work schedule, it doesn't allow me to go to church most times, because my schedule is all over the place. I work most Sundays if I get a Sunday off, the odd occasion. But again, I still try my best.
Wait, in Canada?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I try my best to read as much as possible. And again, when you go to university, they teach you how to think critically. Because when you're in high school, you're doing English language, you know, but they don't go into the critical aspect of it, the critical thinking aspect of it. So as soon as you come through now, you're like, oh, but this is where I'm at, because I'll go to church every Sunday, but I'll also go to party on Saturday night. So I'll go to party on a Saturday night, I'll party until maybe 4, and then I'll wake up and go to church on the Sunday. Because I want to hear what's happening here. And then I'm formulating these opinions. And even my friends, they'll tell you, I know somebody who does everything. And I won't say that with tongue in cheek. I literally know somebody who does everything. And that's straight across the board. I know a footballer, I know a dancer, I know a singer, I may know a thief, you get me? And that's the spot I'm in. So I'll be here and someone will message me and say, okay, this is a predicament.
Your energy is good too, so people go out as well. Yeah.
And I may not identify with any of them whatsoever, but I feel as if I am the central or the focal point where people can come to me and say, okay, Norando, this is what's happening, or this is what's happening in my situation. The other day, I had one of my friends who was having issues with his girlfriend, and he was messaging me.
Like we all do.
So we were talking on the phone until maybe like 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning Canada time, and my wife was there. She's like, okay, you're not going to bed? I'm like, we need to start this out tonight, we need to get this fixed before I go to bed. And it's the same thing. So and it's been going over. I have friends who are playing professional football, and they message me, they're like, okay, Norando, this is what's happening, and what should I do? And I'll tell them my opinion. I'm like, I'm not telling you what to do, but based on the information that you provided.
You asked me for my opinion.
Exactly, and I look at it that way. I look at entire life that way. So based on the information that I'm provided with, I formulate an opinion, and as such, I try to provide myself with as much information as possible. So when I speak my opinion, because they oftentimes say, you know, you are what you see, you know. So whatever comes out of your mouth, so a man think it, so is he. That's what my father always said. So a man think it, so
as
is
a man
he.
think it is so. That's correct.
Right.
You are what you eat too.
Right. And in an extension of that phrase, that's so a man thinketh, so is he. So a man speaketh, so is he. Because before you speak, you have to think, right? And I tell my friends,
the Bible does say is what is inside the defile a man.
Exactly.
You know so and is what is inside is what come out of your mouth.
Exactly. So and I try to, and even when my wife and I just started dating, I always tell her, I said, try to conceptualize what you say before it comes out, because you find that impulsive people, they say sorry the most, right? So because they'll be hearing, and then you say something to them, and because they're so impulsive, they'll say something just for the sake of saying something back, and then afterwards they're realizing that, okay, I said that, it may have hurt someone's feelings, so then they're apologizing when it's already out. The spoken word cannot be, you can't take it back. You get me? So like think before you speak, and in order to formulate a just and a sensible opinion, you need to arm yourself with as much information as possible. So then you'll be able to maneuver the different circumstances that you're faced with in your life. And that's why I have a problem with preachers or pastors or Christians who only read the Bible, or you only read the Watchtower, you only read whatever her name is, her little book, and then you come and you try to discredit what I say, because I have read the Bible, I've read the Watchtower, I've read all these other books as well. In addition to the 150,000 or million YouTube videos that I've watched and researched to justify these, and Muta Baruka, who I've listened to, and all these guys that I've listened to, because
Jordan Peterson is someone I listen to also a lot.
And if we shun these
and
guys,
I'm not even religious, and I'm watching his biblical lecture about
if you shun these guys, right? If you shun them, you will not be able to properly reciprocate information to the masses. Because if you are coming out here and you're saying, okay, Muta Baruka is talking foolishness, but you haven't really thought of what Muta Baruka has been saying, you know. You didn't sit down and listen to what Muta is saying, you know. But because he's a Rastaman and he's coming out here barefoot and he's saying whatever, you're saying what he's saying is foolishness. Whereas Muta has probably read more books than you and I combined, right? And that's how he formed his opinion. So instead of you saying, okay, what he's saying is foolishness, you need to step back, self-reflect, and understand that, okay, this man has read, he's traveled the world, he's done his research, and he's formed a perspective. And you have to respect that perspective, because it's not the same perspective that you have doesn't make it wrong. You get me?
Exactly. We're born it like you've said before. If we're assuming that God's real and all this, and that He created us with this brain that can think, and that we have different lives we live in different areas of the world and different perspectives. So of course, we as humans are bound to have things that we agree upon and disagree upon.
Yeah, and it's the same Christian.
And that's fine. Because that's fine that way. And that's a great criticism of.
But God is a God of diversity, you know what I'm saying?
Right. And I was going to get to that. I was going to get to that, Pastor, because I think in the Bible it also says that the seven corners of the world and the word of God will be echoed in it everywhere. Basically, essentially, it's saying that everyone in the world will be praising God, right? But still, we have Buddhism, we have Sikhism, we have all these individuals, right? So is it that because God also said He's called by many names? So is it a case where God is the statue in Eastern China looking like this? Is it because some may say it is worshiping an idol as well, because most Asian folks, they have an image of what Buddha looks like. All right. And I would assume that you get me, you get the basis on where I'm coming from. So how do we then how do we how do I belittle? How do we belittle these other religions or these other faiths and put?
I don't think that's any way to live either.
Right, and put ours on a pedestal.
That's why that's kind of why and that's another reason why I haven't committed myself to a religion yet, but I haven't counted any of them out either, because I think there's value in every religion in some aspect.
We place too much significance on religion and too little significance on spirituality, as Pastor mentioned last week, right?
That's a great point.
Religion becomes too important. It is too important to individuals, and they
God bigger than religion.
It becomes propaganda. At
exactly, and it calls into question a lot of things too, because a lot of these religious folks, quote unquote, they are in it for the wrong reasons. And if you go through the U.S. Congress and all these big organizations across the world, the UN and all these big organizations, they are tied to a religion, and that religion is oftentimes Catholicism.
Yeah.
Right. So because Catholicism is different from Christianity, and I hope folks know that.
Because Catholics, I was taught that Jesus was sacrificed on the cross, and that he's the Son of God and all that, and I forget what the Christian stance on that is. I forget the exact difference. Do you remember those difference between Catholic?
I mean, it's the same thing, but Catholicism is
well, the Pope is the big difference.
Right.
Because Catholics believe that the Pope is the one
representation
chosen by God. He is the man on earth, allegedly, that is the closest to God, and that when God speaks to him, he tells other Catholics, "All right, God, I am spreading the word of God directly from him because I'm closer than any of you are," which that already
and that was abolished. That's what Jesus came for, but essentially the Pope is like the replacement of Jesus.
Which shouldn't
Catholics.
be the case. I'm not even a Catholic or a Christian or a believer in God yet, but even I'm like, I don't get that. It just seems at that point you could make a valid case where Catholicism is like it's not just worshiping one God. It's a demi. I'm forgetting the word. A religion of demigods, for lack of a better word.
Essentially.
Because you pray to saints. You pray to Mother. You pray to my godmother in New York, my Aunt Mary. I remember from the earliest time that I ever known her, she always tells me, pray. She's like, pray to the Mother Mary. She will keep you safe and all. And it just seems like this is a separate entity from God. And that's the other thing too, is it's confusing. That's also why I haven't gotten on board yet with anything, because I have way more questions than answers. Granted, I love talking about these questions, but I don't have the answers,
Pastor, I don't know if you've seen this movie on Netflix. It's called Fatima. It's based on actual events.
A black youth?
No, it's
a black
Fatima.
Youth in Italy?
No, it's three children in Portugal.
Where they see the Mother Mary?
Yeah, it's in Portugal. It happened in Portugal. And that's the basis on modern day Catholicism.
Yeah.
That's what it's built on.
I'll research it tonight.
Yeah, look for it, man. Fatima. 3 kids. I think one of the girls, she became a nun, and right. She was the one telling the story, really.
I hear about it. I hear says a good one.
Yeah, man. I watched it. Because, again, as I said, I'm always open to new information and get it. And the kids, they went out into the field, and at one point, I think both the girls, they could see, but the guy that was there, he couldn't see, but he could hear. So he was hearing everything that the Mother of Mary was saying. And then they were telling back to the city, and everyone was saying, "Oh, the kids are lying," and they ended up at one point locking up the kids, saying they need psychiatric evaluation and all of that. But
reported in 1970 by 3 shepherd children that they saw the blessed. Yeah. I thought that was in Italy for some reason.
No, the name and entire said like that area now is sacred. They built
it's a Catholic pilgrimage site.
Yep, they built it around where the kids saw the Mother Mary.
Yeah.
Because they saw her by like a small bush, like kind of like where what's his name saw the burning bush, something like that. So they saw the bush and.
Are you talking about the flaming bush and the tongues?
Yes.
Yeah,
Moses.
Right?
Yeah, where Moses saw the burning bush. But it was a similar situation because they were out in the fields and one of the girls saw it and she was like, "Oh, guys, can you not see what's happening here?" And a younger one who was there as well, she saw it, and the young boy that was there, he couldn't see, but he could hear everything. And then people came from all over the world, like to see what was happening. And these three little kids, they were.
Cause you have to remember, every man having them art a space for God, so people always try find that thing. But really and truly, what I believe is every man have to find him for their own self internally. Like Bible says, must worship him in spirit and in truth. Like with who you are as a truth, the raw truth of who you are, and in spirit. So the system of religion is it will bring confusion, it will bring a lot of questions. But if you connect with if we call him the boss, if you connect with God by your own self and say, Father God, this is who I am, this is what I believe, my confused already. He will feel that vibe, he will show himself to you personally, and that's how me live my life, and that's how me tell people to live them life. And so I might not necessarily have to have a church building to have impact on people, different people on different parts of the world, because a man will feel complete in himself, after you done empower him, what I'm saying, to know, say, hey, no matter how far, no matter how bad, no matter how confused, no matter how you can never really separate yourself really from the love of God, what I'm saying? You just reason with him and talk, and he will reveal himself some way, somehow, God will talk about.
Facts. So again, spirituality greater than religion. Should be
that's a decent idea, but I'm gonna say problem, but I would say one counter argument that if you were talking to, let's say, a very religious Catholic person or a Christian, is that they would be like, well, but it's not Catholic. It's not tied into something. And that's one problem. It's like a lot of this stuff is like let me get this straight. Or let me make this clear. A lot of people who follow religion are not extremists. But some people do take this to levels of cults and stuff like that, where they are so devoted. They also happen to be very good at manipulation, and then they pick their target audience, and then they can nurture them essentially and brainwash them into doing things at first for religion, but then it slides over from God, from the first intention, and then you have yourself and your own desires over here. Slowly but surely, the more these people get indoctrinated, the more it becomes away from God from the start. And it becomes more about you, self-serving you.
That is true. That is why, really and truly, nothing is wrong. If they're saying it's not about Catholicism or not about another denomination, nothing is wrong with that. The Bible says you must worship him in spirit and in truth. It's you alone have your spirit, and you alone know who you really are as a person. If him lead you to a congregation where you have a like-minded set of people where everybody is similar, it's all the better. But you really and truly, at the end of the day, it's not you and your Catholic brothers go stand up before God and you're alone.
Yeah.
You understand me?
It becomes a competition.
Yeah. And who's more religious? Who's more dedicated? Who's going to get into heaven first? Who's going to have the seat?
It comes to the same
God
thing
at the table of heaven.
Yep.
Yeah.
It becomes a competition. And
major and the minors, as I said.
Yeah, if we're all children of God, then we're supposed to be thinking about getting to our Father, right? We shouldn't be thinking, okay, I'm going to get to daddy with a Chris Nike. I'm going to drive to daddy in a Mercedes Benz. And these different things that I'm mentioning aren't necessarily literally. It's a denominations. So you're saying, okay, I have 500,000 members over my denomination here. So we're going to get to daddy first. So you're more inclined to be focusing on what you're going to get to daddy in, or what you're going to get to daddy with the people you're going to get to daddy with, rather than actually just getting to daddy. All right. So and then you're looking across and you're like, oh, you're just going to daddy in dirty clothes, and over here we have clean clothes and we have nice cars, getting to daddy. So again, we major in minors. We're majoring in minors, and if religion is of so much significance as it is portrayed now, then I think the Bible would vividly state it there that this should be the church that everybody should go to. So
true.
That's my opinion, because nowhere in the Bible it says, oh, you should worship on a Sunday, and nowhere in the Bible it says you should worship on a Saturday. It says the Lord rested on the Sabbath day, but yet you're still going to church on the Sabbath, where that's not resting. Your manservant through the taxi driver is taking you to church. The works of a manservant in your vehicle that you're driving to church is taking you to church. So technically, your manservant is working, because he made the car that is taking you to church, right? So I can't. The discussion will never end, because again, people have different perspectives.
It's not something that will end, but you just have to start somewhere.
Right, and they'll continue saying, oh, but this or but no. As I said, my father was a Seventh-day Adventist, so I grew up learning Seventh-day Adventist principles. My aunt, all my father's relatives are Seventh-day Adventists, right? On my mother's side, it's the Sunday church. So I'm the middle guy. So
the middle line.
Right, so I'm getting information from this side, but I'm also getting information from that side. And as I said, I go to both churches. I even ended up at Jehovah's Witness one time. Then they kept coming to me.
And your wife is a Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah, my wife is Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
Now that's and that's an interesting. So, and that's the other thing about religion that I kind of it's confusing, because it's like my dad's Catholic. He's not like an extreme Catholic, but like we'll talk about things like, what if you married someone who was Islam or a Jehovah? It's like, how would you, so how do you deal with that situation? Because you have a wife who is Jehovah, but you aren't Jehovah, right? So how do you guys deal with that, or what? I'm not trying to get too personal.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I just figured you brought it up.
She isn't an active member of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
Right, but again, she grew up with those principles, and I ever since I was a youngster, I've always participated in like debating, and like I did spelling bee at one point. I've done all these things. So I'm the kind of kid who will stand up in front of the school with maybe 500 people and speak.
Me too. Because I like doing that. I like giving my opinion, especially on things that I'm passionate about or intellectual. I like this stuff.
Right. So it's not that I've shun away from it. The Jehovah's Witness folks, even like, because my wife grew up in the Jehovah's Witness. They used to like go to her house, obviously, and like they'd conduct sessions where they educate her or inform her, trying to get her to become an official member. Because I guess when you're baptized, I'm not even sure if they do baptisms as well, but when you
that up real quick.
When you become an official member, I'll have to ask her to. But they came to my house. They came to my house on a number of occasions, and I asked them vividly, what did they witness? I'm like, your name states Jehovah's Witness, so it is stating that you witness Jehovah, right? Because if I come here and I say car witnesses, then if I name myself car witnesses, you're going to say you've witnessed cars, right? Because that's what my name states. So it says Jehovah Witness, and I asked them what they witnessed, because your name is misleading. It's disingenuous because you didn't witness Jehovah, right? One of you will witness Jehovah. The first one who has witnessed Jehovah, step forward and tell me where you witnessed Jehovah. What does he look like? What type of shoes was he wearing? And again, the discussion took a turn further wrong, right? Because they're like, oh, well, you being this and that. And then they tried to convince me with a lot of things.
Jamaica or Canada.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they bought them, Jamaica or Canada?
Jamaica.
Oh.
Since I got to Canada, like, it's been different, because I think when last week I had an encounter with a pair of Jews. They invited me to a mitzvah. I think that's what they named it.
Bar mitzvah. Was that like a guy's 13-year-old?
No, it wasn't a bar mitzvah. It was just a mitzvah. So okay. I know of a bar mitzvah. I know what a bar mitzvah is, but I don't know what a mitzvah is. So I'm like, okay, it's probably a party, but if it's a bar mitzvah is like a 13th birthday, then a mitzvah, I'm pretty sure it's a party somewhere. But anyway, I had a discussion with them, and then they went on their merry way. But in Jamaica, most of the things that I'm talking about when it relates to religion, it happened in Jamaica. And I've been to the Church of Mormons of Latter-day Saints. I've been there too, right? So when I say I've been around the block, I've been to almost all of them, right? And I went there, and they started telling me about Joseph Smith and him being the prophet, and he operated in the US in whenever time. And I started questioning again. And so I'm the type of person, I'll invite you to my house. They'll come, they'll sit, they'll have dinner, they'll do everything, and we'll have a proper discussion. Yeah. Because I have nothing against you. I'm not. I give everyone a blank slate. So I don't know you, Steve. You messaged me. You were in the comment section in my last live, and you shared your opinion. I'm like, fine. You messaged me in my DM. We had a conversation, and you wrote your story. So I formed an opinion of you based on our discussion that we had. And it's the same thing. And it's the same thing with everybody. So I don't go into situations, and I tell the folks at work as well, when I'm training the associates at work, I tell them, at no point should you be judging someone based on how they look or what they're doing or whatever. You don't know anything about them. So,
or what you've heard about them.
So give them a blank sheet. So we'll start off with a blank sheet, and Stephen Blake coming is wearing a t-shirt and a short. You jot it down. He's wearing a t-shirt and a short. His hair is properly groomed. So, right, we're turning on the better side now. T-shirt and shorts, but hair is properly groomed. Right? His pants is at his navel. Okay, pants is at his navel. Parents taught him good principles. So you get me. So based on the information that we're getting from Stephen, based on what Stephen is saying, based on what we're getting from him, what he's giving to us, then we form an opinion. But for me to say Stephen Blake comes in and his pants is below his waist, so I'm going to say he's a hoodlum. He's a hoodlum.
He's a criminal.
It's unjust and it's unfair, and that's why I've had the discussion with all the different religious groups. I've had the discussions. I've been to the churches because I have nothing against any of the churches or any other religions. As I said, my father was a Rastafarian at one point. I used to be listening to Gregory Isaac and Peter Tosh and Bob Marley every Sunday afternoon after I come from church. So I'd be at church until 12, because church starts at 9, and I'll be at church until 12. Get home at maybe 1. My mom prepares dinner, and as soon as we finish eating dinner, 3, 4, we'd be listening Peter Tosh and all these guys straight until maybe 7, until it's time for news. So I've had the best of both worlds for the most part, and it has described my mindset and my mentality and my channel of thought into a way that I couldn't appreciate more. And I give thanks to everyone in my life that contributed to that.
Lovely see your reason, you know, man. Your reason magnificently, man. It's like you're a scholar at reasoning. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man.
Let's start trade for reasoning.
Yeah, man. Your reasoning is very uplifting, and it gives you a lot of room to think, and very positive, you know? Uplift your soul.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man.
No, and you're an extreme intelligent guy, Normando. I like, and again, I just like listening to you two talk, because you guys have very interesting things to say. So, but yeah, thanks again for coming on my channel. And I was also just gonna kind of point out another thing that I forgot to comment when you guys were doing the video. The thing about sports that appeals to me is that there's a winner and there's a loser. To me, with religion, and when I go to church, when I've gone to church in the past, I don't really know what the point is necessarily, because there isn't a team sheet, there isn't a lineup, there isn't a coach, there isn't.
They're essentially trying to convince you that everybody can win.
Yeah, but that's not how the world works, and even if it was, it would be a boring world, because then you wouldn't have to try. You wouldn't have to try to succeed. You would just be successful, or God would just do that.
Wow.
And that's what appeals to me about sports, is that it doesn't matter if you're an amateur team in England. Guess what? If you play in the FA Cup, you could play Man United at home next week, and you could beat them. and it's been done before, you know. And that's the kind of, and again, we'll reference the David versus Goliath sort of thing. That's one thing that I think is missing from religion, is like, what is the
truth missing.
Yeah, I would argue missing. That. Yeah.
Oh, so that's a great way to leave our minds. Because you're really right. I mean,
who loses?
Yeah.
Who loses? Because if I know the Jehovah's Witnesses, they teach that there are X amount of spaces in heaven. So the rest of the folks, yeah,
they teach that there's a limited amount.
44,000.
Yeah, they do.
Wow.
And they say also that the earth is going to be purged, so that they're going to clear off whatever, and then we're going to come back and live here in nice houses and all of that. So again,
no disrespect to Jehovah. I'm just learning this.
No.
It's interesting. It's interesting belief.
Him doesn't teach you. Him doesn't make you know what.
As I said, my better half grew up in the Jehovah's Witness. But again, we just have to understand that someone has to win and someone has to lose. And you coming out and threatening folks that if they lose, they're going to go to hell. Sometimes you're trying your best to win, as we mentioned about the teams. So both of them are praying, both of them are trying their best to win, but someone has to lose. But in this case, you're threatening and saying, okay, if you lose, you're going to hell.
Or you're a loser. you're a loser, and you're going to hell because you don't believe in God, or you questioned us.
Pastor, rough. Yeah. Pastor, it is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
What I would advise, Steve, is that I kind of tough still, you know, because you got church and it's like, so what's the purpose of it? You have to just stick around people who make things clear to you, you know what I'm saying? Because it is also our responsibility, because the Bible says you must always be ready at any time and easy to defend the faith. So if a man can ask you a question and you don't have the answer, you're really in a trouble, because if that is the only time that the man can get that answer, you can't give him, you go have an answer to God. So I would advise you to, you know, try to stick around or watch or with things that connect with your soul and spirit and your mind. That's why I'm telling you, the Bible says, they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So it's not necessarily about religion, about a building, about a system, about a denomination, a priest or a pope. It has to be between you and God, and you make it, and you just, it's like how you level with you. So you have to just one day just say, Father God, if you're real, show yourself. I mean, show some evidence, you know. I need to know the direction as to how my life going to go. Yeah. And just take it one step at a time, and it will make it happen. Might not be tomorrow, might not be tonight, could be, but eventually.
Like the times, like the times that I feel the most connected, or even like in awe. I was talking to you about this earlier, Stephen, is when I go to these these cathedrals. I don't know if so. You live in Canada, Normanda. Have you been to the Montreal Cathedral, Notre Dame?
No.
No, but I don't know if you've seen it or anything. But I've been there on a few occasions.
I've seen a Notre Dame in France.
Yeah. Well, the one there is one also in Montreal, and the thing is, right? So when I travel with my dad, like, and there's a cool church around, or if there's a cathedral, he doesn't have to tell me we're going to church on Sunday. I'll ask him, hey, while we're walking around downtown Montreal or downtown Chicago or wherever, we should go check out this cathedral. It looks beautiful, man. You know, we should go. You know, and that's when I feel most. That's when I like that. That's my comfort zone. Like, I like going to Latin mass because I don't understand a word of the language, but it just feels so much different compared to an ordinary English-speaking church session with Bible and singing and the word. You know, it just feels so much different. Like when you go to a regular church, there are a lot of like you recite a lot of things. The crowd responds to the priest a lot. In a Latin mass, there are probably 4 or 5 times for the entire mass that you actually say something back, because it is mostly the priest on the altar talking to God and doing these rituals or speaking or whatever.
I may very well need to go to a Latin mass.
It's unique, man. It's unique, and it's yeah.
And it's probably all 5 minutes in preach from the service finish, right?
What's up?
How long does the service generally last?
I think an hour and a half, if I'm not mistaken.
Whoa.
And you know what the crazy thing is? I would rather go to that, which would mean I would miss out on Premier League, I would miss out on Ligue 1, and I would miss out on Serie A games. But it's kind of better. It's much, 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 much better than going for an hour in a regular church. It's just, I don't know. Maybe that's my connection with God, and maybe if I went to that and the thing is I don't feel forced to. That's the other thing too.
And he's not speaking English.
Yeah, it's all in Latin. It's all in Latin.
Interesting.
And I don't know how else to explain it.
But you feel a connection in there, though.
Yeah. For some reason, it's. I know.
I need to go there. I need to go to the Latin mass.
Where do you?
I'm gonna have to take in a Latin mass one of these days too.
I live in Toronto, so I'll probably go to Montreal next year because it's too cold.
Yeah. It is very cold.
It's getting cold now. I can't go there in because it's September now, so it's winter essentially. So probably
we're in Canada.
Yeah, well, it's the end of summer, so we're approaching
Toronto.
fall now. Yeah.
Okay.
So like yesterday, I was in Tobermory, which is on the other side of Ontario, and it was 19 degrees, 18 degrees, and it felt so cold. So
here's what the place looks like. It's the
Notre Dame. It's beautiful too.
Just look at.
Where you say it's which part? Toronto, you say?
No, this Notre Dame is in Montreal.
Yeah.
How far is that from Toronto?
Well, 6 hours drive.
Yeah, 200 miles. Look at that, dude.
It's in Quebec.
Yes.
I will definitely make it a part of my what do you call it again? when you have bucket list.
Yeah, bucket list. Yeah. No, I highly recommend you guys go to it. It's a beautiful church.
And you say one is in Chicago as well?
Yes. I'd have to look up the specific name of it, but yes, there's also one in Chicago that I've been to, and they do a Latin mass and stuff like that. There's also one in Manchester in New Hampshire, about an hour-ish away from what I live. It's not as impressive as these other ones, but it's still it's pretty nice. I don't know. There's just something. My guess is that it's just so different and so refreshing from what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like, because I don't understand the language, I don't have to worry about, oh, this priest is just up here lecturing me. Maybe he is, but it's something different, and it feels like this is how church was meant to be, because that they spoke Latin back in the day when they delivered these masses and stuff. It just feels so pure, almost like this was meant to be how church was. I don't know. There's something special about that. I can't quite put my finger on, but I just know whenever I go into any sort of major city, I try and check out that cathedral and walk, and just even if there isn't a mass, just walk around. I would never do that with the church 5 minutes down the road.
Oh, fair enough.
But
I've
that's
been
just,
in a second, so I'll probably check out what's happening with the churches these days. Pastor Stephen Blake is my pastor these days on Instagram on Sundays.
Yeah,
thank you very much, sir.
Same here.
No, I was checking out the session on Sunday, this past Sunday, and I was at work, so I had the phone to the side, and the associates were coming in, and I was doing the paperwork, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm at church." And they're laughing at me. I'm like, "Okay," but yeah, definitely enjoyed that one.
Well, to God be the glory. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next time, let me know say you did it, man.
No, well,
I will see the halftime on it. It's halftime TV is the page, right?
Well, I have two pages. I had my personal page, which is the one I was using. So the personal page is J_analyst21.
On Instagram?
Yeah, so J_analyst.
Do you have a Twitter or no?
Yeah, it's the same thing on Twitter. It's J_analyst21.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you see the same, the bald head and the halftime TV background. But I think on Instagram I have a cartoon. It's a cartoon thing as my display photo.
I think I found it. 1492. Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Analysis.
Yeah, that's me.
Your Obama meme.
Yeah.
If you're interested. If your restaurant doesn't have a line, I'm not interested.
Well, this was a great discussion, guys.
It was.
As always, the pleasure is mine, as I said. Steve, thanks for having me, Steve.
Yes, Steve, appreciate you bringing us on your page, man.
Of course. Yeah, no. It's a great discussion, and you know what the best part is? It's like, yeah, we went off track, but you know what? The best part is it was a natural conversation. It didn't feel scripted, or I had to talk to you guys, or you had to. It's like we all seem to enjoy talking about sport, religion, and whatnot. So that's what I like, and that makes good content too. And it's a byproduct of that.
Yes.
Yeah, originality is key. I actually came because this is the studio in my apartment. And I came in here to do a video because I have to release some videos tomorrow and the day after. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a video. And then I get a message from Steve saying, okay, remember, because I just finished eating dinner. I'm like, oh, just remember, I need to get this done. So I still have to do like 2 more videos to get them ready for tomorrow and the day after. So again, guys, really fun being here. I enjoyed every minute of it. And as always, I'm here. If anything, just message me on Instagram. We can always talk.
All right. Blessing Narando. Blessing Steve.
Come on, guidance, man.
All right.
Thank everyone for watching.
Yeah, and everyone on Steve's channel, blessings to you guys as well. The pleasure is mine. It's really good to be with you guys. All right.
Yeah. And I'll definitely have you guys more on the channel too.
Of course.
For sure. Take care.
Blessings. Your family. All right. Have a good one, guys.
All right.
You too.